Hello and welcome back to another Picard review, putting the World Domination Society back in N squared because y'all just lost the right to vote. I mean, I thought that was gonna be a clear-cut Discovery wins, like tie at best on what I reviewed first. Because, I mean, how could you watch the last episode of Picard and Discovery, and then my reviews, and then go, yeah, I want more Picard. Like, I'm sure Picard will get better, but I think it'll get better in episode 3. And Discovery is really engaging now. The main reason that I wanted Discovery is that for those of you who have watched any other of my series, you'll know that I see episode 2 as the boring one. Episode 1 is your exciting, actiony. You gotta get the audience hooked, right? You gotta get them to come back next week for the rest of the series. So episode 2 is then the one where you gotta slow down and be like, okay, now we've gotta set up the plot and establish the villain and do all that stuff. Well, episode 1 of Picard felt like an episode 2, and that it was pretty slow and not much happened, except at the end of it, we were halfway through the trailer, and I left off feeling like, oh, well, now we've got to establish the plot. So, an episode 2, after that episode 1, I think it's gonna be dull as hell, and just tell us what the trailer already told us. I could be wrong, and I think, honestly, I just severely underestimated how much people want to see me react to Q, or they really want someone who'll just rant about things on the internet, which I will not do. I'll give negative reviews to bad episodes. I might even rant on a bad episode, but I'm just gonna make this clear. If this series just becomes ranting and doesn't get better, these reviews stop. Like, I've already got plans in place for Section 31, like contingency plans, what to do if I have to shut down these reviews. But, yeah, we'll get into it. We'll watch John Delancey hopefully not be butchered, and positivity, open mind, everyone, open mind. You just don't get to vote again when there's obviously a right choice. Lower Decks and Prodigy, I'll let you vote, but Picard and Discovery, no, you don't get to vote anymore. Oh, we're gonna do a classic Doctor Who, are we? Just put the heroes in a unsolvable situation and then watch it be solved in 3 seconds or less next week. But no, other than doing a classic Doctor Who, I mean, is it like Q shows up and fixes it? I'll give him credit. Picard got better before I thought it would. The problem with Picard was always, well, for one, the fact that it's named Picard, so there's constant ambiguity whether or not you're talking about the person or the show. But the second problem with Picard is that it was never set in Utopia. That's been the biggest problem since, well, maybe not Remembrance, but the episode after Remembrance. The reason I thought it would get better is the same reason making Michael Burnham the captain made Discovery better, even though it didn't actually fix any of the problems with Michael Burnham always like rushing in and disobeying orders, is because, well, with Burnham, now she can't go rogue and disobey orders because she writes the orders. Picard was never set in a Utopia, and now it just isn't. So almost all its problems are fixed. Now, almost all, because we still have main characters who grew up in Utopia. Well, not all of them, but most of them, or at least should have grown up in that utopian age, Raffi. But you have then, like, there's expected behavior there. But, I mean, yeah, actually making your non-utopian series not in Utopia, who would have thought? It was definitely in episode 2. I was definitely just... In fact, I'd say catching up with the trailer. We're technically not even caught up with the trailer yet. That'll probably be very early episode 3. But I'm not going to say the best episode 2 of the stuff I've reviewed so far, because there's been some that have not followed the traditional episode 2 format. I think Prodigy was like that. But it's definitely the best episode 2 of episode 2s. Shall we talk about Q? Because I think that's the reason that all 7 people who voted for Picard. I'm happy with how much Q there was in Q. I mean, it was great to see that his very first bit, when he was talking with Picard, I'm like, this is Q. Like, there's no more maturity. I mean, here, it's like, he's still Q. Maybe he's slightly more responsible, but it's still Q. There is one Q episode I don't like out of all of them. And that's, I don't actually remember what it's called, but it's the Deep Space Nine one. And the reason I don't like it is because Q, I think I've talked about briefly this before, but Deep Space Nine is a rather darker show, and Q just didn't work. They made Q too dark, too evil, brutal even. They made him the villain when he's not. And antagonist, yes. Villain, other than like Farpoint, when he'd never seen humanity before, no. And it's the scene where Vash, Vash is like, no, I'm done, I'm back home, I'm leaving, it's a nightmare. And Q gives Vash the disease back, and like she's withering away on the promenade, and he's basically stands towering over her, and she's like dying. He might even say that, like, you're mine. I own you. You're my plaything. And like, as much as this joviality, I portray this joviality, I'm in control, and you're mine. And no, that's not cute. Now, here's the interesting thing, is that scene pales in comparison to half the stuff Q did in this episode. But also, the fact that Q's sick, unwell, there's something wrong with Q. It's interesting now. Like, it's definitely a reserved judgment. You have to figure out, well, what's wrong with Q, and then once they fix it, is he go back to more, well, being Q. And so it's definitely more an intriguing style, a more intriguing thing. It's not just, oh, he's vicious now. There's something wrong with him. And that's interesting. Like, what could happen to a Q? What could possibly happen to make a Q anything, ill, unstable, like anything. There's the small caveat though, and that half the scenes were, the Q we know and love, right? I'd probably say about half his things, it was great. The other half were that, and I don't want to watch that. Like, there are Q-like beings with like that kind of power. A very similar one is actually Doctor Who in Big Finish's range. The Word Lord, I think it's his second regeneration. I won't go into too much detail if you don't know him, but basically it's kind of like Q. Nobody, no one is his name, and he can basically do anything, is the brief one. And he has an incarnation where he could literally do anything. He has the power to do anything, and he's insane. And it's an amazing character, but it's like, it can work, but especially with Q, it's like, well, I don't want to watch that kind of aggressive Q with like just causing that kind of harm to Picard. It's the brutal Q, really. It's the crazy-eyed. I mean, John Delancey's doing it amazingly. It's a very hard thing to do. You don't want to watch it, but you still do. I think Deep Space Nine did it amazingly. You have episodes like the Siege of AR-115, is it? Which, like, is not fun. God, a lot of late Deep Space Nine is not fun. But you still want to watch it? And I don't quite have that with a lot of the scenes with Q, with those types of scenes with Q. I don't know if it's because it's Q, or, like, it's not as engaging writing. I've said before plenty of times, Deep Space Nine, that later Deep Space Nine, is one of two shows which I consider to be perfect. Like, it's an incredibly high quality of writing you need to make unwatchable things watchable. And I'll accept, like, that not wanting to watch Q brutalize Picard. Well, that could also be a narrative choice, and there can be meaning behind stuff like that. Like, I don't want to watch this happen. Well, that's kind of the point, from like the writer perspective, and it really does, like, just like Picard, when he started going a bit crazy, it's something's wrong. Like, it's not just, I didn't go, they've ruined Q, I went, something is wrong with Q, and I'm very glad they instantly just did, what is wrong with you, because something is wrong. So yeah, I am interested to see where that goes, and I hope we still get to see Q. I mean, it was Q. I can't remember exactly his lines, but his very first conversations, it's before that, what's wrong with you, before he starts going crazy. I'm like, this is Q. Yeah, I mean, he's back. It's great. Just got a message from my partner who saw that tweet I made. Basically, the recap, I made a tweet, like, I've never seen a previously on completely encapsulate the entirety of the last plot while not omitting anything. It's like a joke, a jab. Picard episode 1 did not have to be 55 minutes. The recap, a bit long, but completely covered everything. I got a message from him, just good luck with the work stuff from my partner. This is my job, watching Star Trek Picard. Let's talk about, remember that there used to be this person on the Reddit, Star Trek Reddit, who would do canon references since, I think, the 2009 movie even, something crazy. Everyone would have incredibly in-depth and funny, they were funny reviews. And, I mean, Star Trek banned him, the Reddit, for a joke, a lighthearted joke. God, I miss that person. Anyway, this episode had a lot of references. It's interesting, kind of that, I think, the Mirror Universe episodes like to set up, here's what everyone else did. There was Deep Space Nine references. We never get those. There was a Ducat, Seven's husband, was going to call Commander Sisko. It might not have been Commander, something Sisko even, which is interesting, actually, because that implies the prophets made Sisko, but he didn't actually go into the wormhole. Anyways, it could be Jake Sisko, could be any Sisko, but that was fun. There were some that felt too heavy-handed, but I also think it's Star Trek has a history of quoting poetry, especially Shakespeare. If you go to any Sub Rosa, off the top of my head, on Memory Alpha, you'll see an ever-growing comment that says this episode is one of, like, I don't know, 16, 17 that borrows its title from Shakespeare, or Latin. The Latin's the other one. But it felt like one of Q's first lines was like, oh, how yesterday's Enterprise of you. And I was like, God, like, really? Just why reference yesterday's Enterprise? Like, it just takes me out of it. Oh, hang on, that's probably a poem, isn't it? And then he did again with In a Mirror Darkly, which I figured, I think it's Shakespeare, actually, In a Mirror Darkly. I kind of felt like, you still know, as writers, like, you chose those ones specifically. It just kind of took me out of it. But the other stuff, you could argue it was a bit fan servicey and overdone. Like, literally, here's the lineup of famous Star Trek aliens. You've got Martok, Dukat, and Sarek, which, by the way, this evil Federation really hadn't managed to conquer Vulcan yet in 200 years, 300 years, roughly. I think it's like 250 years or so. Like, really, the Mirror Universe did it, like, in a few decades. I think the way they're including the Borg Queen is also very interesting. It's kind of felt like a casual, the Borg can just, like, Queen can sort of communicate with herself across all timelines, like, she can just do that. But aside from that, though, I mean, it was like a bit of a shock reveal when the Borg Queen came up. I mean, obviously it was going to be someone we knew. Soji's still missing, thinking about it. Actually, that's a good point. I was thinking after, like, episode 3, they're gonna do the sun revolt, the slingshot maneuver, go back in time. We've seen that scene in the trailers, but they still need to get Soji. But anyway, yeah, sort of weird alliance is interesting. I mean, it's very convenient that the Borg Queen has, like, perfect power plug sockets to the Lost Arena to just plug into. But no, I thought that was interesting. I mean, it makes sense. It's logical how they're doing things. And yeah, it's interesting. It's really, as I said before, episode 1 really felt like the writers, like, begrudgingly accepting or rather even thinking that they have to show, like, the world is nice, and they have to kind of go, oh, after season 1, this is what happened, and then they could get into the plot, and it'd be better. And, well, now they're getting into the story they want to tell, and it's better. Another weird note, as I remembered, was, so the Confederation is they're invading Vulcan, and they're using alien cargo vessels to do it, because that's what the Lost Arena is a modified alien cargo vessel. I don't remember what kind of alien, not Kelpian, it's something that sounds similar. It is alien, and it is a cargo vessel. Maybe that's why it's taken them 2.5 centuries to invade Vulcan. How do you beat Andoria before Vulcan? They were the warlike people in Enterprise. Another thing, I remember in my notes when Seven was kind of testing if it was a dream or not. She tried to smell a candle, and she was like, "You can't smell in dreams." I'm like, you can't? Then I am very concerned at some of the times that I've been teleported away at night to some sort of fantasy land where I have smelled things before. Like, not constantly, sure, but you can smell in dreams. And her cognitive abilities were fun as well, just writing some formula, not solving math, just writing a formula. In her defense, it is probably quite a shock, though. Oh, someone in the comments probably tell me, who was that cat? Because the voice of that cat that now the internet's probably going to go crazy over. But I know that voice, and I couldn't place it. If someone could tell me who the voice of that cat was, that'd be really appreciated. One big thing as well I want to say is I am concerned with their Doctor Who cliffhanger. If you don't know, classic Doctor Who did this all the time. It's literally every episode. And it has some really bad, like, the Doctor and friends always has to be, like, about to die. And then the next episode, they'll have things like he just slaps the gun out of their hand or whatever, or like basically Deus Ex Machinas will happen sometimes. Or like someone will walk in the room and be like, "Stop, they're so bad." It's just embarrassing, honestly. But anyway, my concern is when I was watching that, was thinking, so Q is gonna come along and basically be like, "Oh no, do it again," or something. That's my thought. Even if it's not, they're not gonna die. The main thing I think it's a reset is we've seen Elnor in the trailers, and he doesn't have a big hole in him. Like, he's not dead. And maybe they fix him up, sure. Not in the 24th century, they're not gonna. Or sorry, it's the 2024, they're not gonna. But, like, it sets a dangerous tone how they get rescued of the danger doesn't matter. In Discovery, Season 4, I've heavily praised the destruction of Kwejian is setting the precedence of these people, these places and stuff aren't immortal. There are some big guns you can't destroy. You know, you're not going to destroy Earth, which, again, mistake putting it in danger. You're not going to kill Burnham. But it's enough to get that doubt, at least, that, like, maybe you'd kill Burnham if you write the scene well enough. This is the opposite problem, where you've set the precedent of these are immortal and a literal god will pop out of the sky and save them. Even if it's not Q, if someone shows up, just he's like, save them for questioning or whatever. Or even they just slap the gun aside next episode. Especially if you've been waiting in suspense, you're not used to the classic Doctor Who nothing cliffhanger. Like, what that tells me as a viewer is that these people can be in whatever danger they need to be in, and they'll just be rescued. Like, nothing will happen, and there's no danger at all. And it's a very fine line, because you kind of know your main cast are going to be fine, especially in the trailer. Like, we know they're not going to die here. You remove tension if anything in the next episode drops down and saves them. And if nothing saves them, maybe they do get arrested. But then, like, Elnor, like, is he just gonna die in prison? Time travel episodes have that danger already, where, as my uncle likes to say, you know the resolution is literally nothing has changed from last time. I disagree slightly in that you can develop characters, especially over a season. Like, in theory, you can make changes to the characters, but yeah, the conclusion of any time travel plot is the reset button. I'm just very worried they're gonna set a really bad precedent of nothing matters at any danger. They'll just be saved by Q or any random person on the street. I think that's it for the developments, really. I'm just gonna get into the scene by scene, jog some memories. I know there's some real little things I want to talk about, but again, it was still an episode 2. As much as it was more engaging and interesting than I thought it would be, it basically set up the plot. There's not a whole lot to talk about. I will say, I'm a little surprised no one's brought up Gabriel Bell. Like, actually, did they say Los Angeles or San Francisco? I don't remember. If the change was in LA, it's not Gabriel Bell. But I know they go to both cities. From the trailers, we know that. I'd have to double check. But anyway, I could also forgive it because I was gonna give the example. I was thinking as I watched that in the video, I'm like, I'll say, oh, it's like giving this city and this date and not knowing it's the. And then I realized that I don't actually know any city date combinations beside like really big DC 1812. I'm gonna be like, oh, is that like the War of 1812 when the White House burned down or something? Um, America 1776, you know, but the Bell riots don't really feel like that kind of event, especially next to like World War III starting. I was gonna say it's the example in earlier Picard, like Dunkirk or D-Day. I guess no, I do know D-Day is Normandy, but Normandy isn't a city, is it? It's like a province. So like if you gave the city that was by the D-Day beaches and a date, I wouldn't know where that was. I would go like, oh, maybe is that a World War II thing? Just because of the day and it sounds French, but yeah, I'll allow it. And even if it isn't Gabriel Bell, which it shouldn't be, because Deep Space Nine showed us the consequences of Gabriel Bell not happening, and it's not this. It's nothing like this. You think it'd come up, like, oh, what happened around there? Oh, Gabriel Bell, you know? Yeah. I am gonna get into the scene by scene, and I mean, I don't know why it's just gonna be now. I don't really understand the point of the shield around the planet. That's incomplete as well. Q was kind of like, in your time, humanity had found a way to save the world it was destroying. These people just hold it back. So I'm kind of thinking, is it a pollution thing? Why isn't it complete then? Later we're going to see the Golden Gate Bridge is still just full of solar panels for some reason. So like they're doing green energy. But also by your time, like, no, the 24th century didn't solve the climate crisis. It was the 21st century in Star Trek that did that. Like, sure, after World War III, but it was very weird. And even then, I've always kind of liked or respected in Star Trek your sort of mega bad guy aliens. Even the Ferengi will look at 20th and nowadays 21st century society and be like, humanity did what? Like, the Ferengi are shocked by the lengths capitalism goes to. And this is just kind of like, oh, you're a bad human, so you didn't solve pollution. Don't we have the technology to fix that? I'm sure someone in the description will know. Someone in the comments will know if there's, like, that random tech from that one episode. But I feel like we could just fix pollution with that technology. And I was thinking, maybe it's a defensive shield. That's the obvious answer, right? But you can literally beam the president out of the presidential palace and nothing will stop you. Like, you may say there were the shields that stopped Rios from doing it. No, they specifically raised special shields for the event. Like, you could just beam her out. Even when Starfleet was never founded, Starfleet security, and it's a totalitarian nightmare. Starfleet security is Starfleet security. I think people say in Star Trek humanity doesn't really have a thing. You know, the Ferengis are capitalists, the Vulcans are logic-y, the Cardassians are military-y. Humanity's thing isn't that it doesn't fit into a box, it's that humanity can't do security. That's our racial trait. I'm trying to find the frame I want, and I found this one that looks like two guys just singing. Granted, one with a bloody nose, but that's the one I'm going to talk about. The scene where Picard kind of saw all his slaves, I did find it weird that Picard didn't do anything about that. Like, I get he can't just go, you're free now, run off into the French wilderness, you Romulans, that I don't know anything about this France, but just go be free. But I'm like, you could give him the day off, at least try, like, no. Same with the synthetic guy. Like, I don't know if those synths are sentient. No, I want to say they wouldn't be, because the whole thing about season 1 was no one had made a fully sentient synth since Data. But I also probably would have said the same thing about the Doctor. But it did kind of feel weird how he was just kind of accepting that. I don't know, like, you could say it's a rough day for him, you know, he's going through a lot, but this is also Jean-Luc Picard. The captain, not while I'm his Captain Picard. Like, there were some weird things in Picard's room, his skull room. It's weird with modern Star Trek now, I think, how much you can throw Star Trek things on a wall and not have it feel like Star Trek things. Like, I don't know if it's maybe the weathering or the materials they're using wrong, or just the fact that the more modern stuff, the Discovery stuff, especially the older ones, Picard, tends to look a bit more generic sci-fi in its random weaponry and apparel. But I think I also saw some JJ stuff, I swear. It's either the Torchbearer's uniform or the JJ Klingon uniform we saw, which I don't like, but Q magic, I guess. But shout outs to whoever designed this Ferengi skull, because this Ferengi skull is fantastic and I love it. I was gonna say, who do you think was like the important Ferengi he killed? I guess maybe Zek, Grand Nagus Zek, but then I realized it's just an amazing skull. Like, yeah, I'd have that in my study if I was a ruthless dictator person. I also found it kind of weird Picard wouldn't even hear out Q's like pitch, like what's going on to fix this. He's done it before, but usually it's kind of when it's about Picard. I think it's one of the early ones. Q takes Picard, to a shuttlecraft, and Picard just sits there is like, yeah, I'll starve to death rather than listen to you. But literally the entire quadrant, no, the entire galaxy, the Borg have been affected, is suffering because of this. And Picard isn't going to be like, oh, okay, how do I fix this? He's like, no. Every non-human species can just be genocided. And I'm not even going to hear you out because I'm a stubborn old man. Again, this is Picard. I think of All Good Things, right? Yeah, in All Good Things, he's angry at Q. This is another scenario where I think he thinks Q has done it, where maybe he hasn't, or something. But in All Good Things, I don't recall Picard ever being like, no, I'm not gonna help you. All of everything's being destroyed, but I won't help you. He was like, no, there's a serious danger to the quadrant here. I need to do something about it because I'm Captain Picard. This Picard's, no. The whole galaxy can suffer because I won't help you. Especially when he knows this isn't just Q being Q, like there is something wrong with Q. It felt weird he wouldn't even hear him out. I guess you could argue, he's always been stubborn. Usually on the moral, right, he's been stubborn. It's his conviction. And so maybe you could argue he thinks he could do it himself. I guess at this point he didn't realize this was their reality. No, you know what? Yeah, I'm looking at this wrong. Because before he didn't realize this was their reality. It'd be like, if for all he knows, he's been dropped in the mirror universe, which he probably knows about. Yeah, alright, I'll give it to him. Like, at this point, he doesn't even know that anyone else is wherever he is. This could be some Q fantasy. So yeah, it is a lot better than I thought. I do find it kind of interesting how Picard takes the sort of evil version of himself, so to say, from this universe. Because it's not an evil version of himself. It's someone else entirely. Like, you might say, oh, put yourself in his shoes, and there's some sort of dictator Nathan. There's a Nathan here who's running N squared, but it's some sort of like fake news, ultra right wing Nazi thing or whatever. Yeah, if there's infinite universes, then yeah, there are just as many N squares that are that as are doing this. And none of them are me. Even the universe where everything is exactly as it is right now, except an electron 50 buggadajillion light years away outside the observable universe has an upspin instead of a downspin, is still not me. It's a separate entity. And especially when you talk stuff like this, not only would that me have lived such a different life, well, this me, has made conscious decisions in their life and actions to become this person, and they were choices. I could have choices, yes, helped along by the world I grew up in, or rather the specific situation I grew up in, my parents, my upbringings, my school, everything, but they were choices I could have just not made, and I could have chose to make the other choices, but I didn't, and that's why I'm me. So an alternate universe where there's some evil person who was born to the same parents as me, well, even then, no, they're not. Like, an identical DNA lineage going back to some first life form that also happened to resemble the first life form on this Earth is not me. I mean, it's not fun to watch, like, but it's no less fun to watch, like, some random person spout racist nonsense than to watch some random person who looks like me spout random racist nonsense. If it was worse to watch someone who looked like you spout random racist nonsense, then why would Charlie Chaplin keep the Hitler mustache? It's just not you. I'm not saying it's unreasonable that someone would react like this, but I do think that generally people are really weird when it comes to alternate versions of the self. Take Synth Picard. Synth Picard. A lot of people argue, no, Jean-Luc Picard is dead. This is just some other guy that's taken his place. Yeah, Jean-Luc Picard is dead. The one who... The entity that was, like, either the same molecules or the chain of molecules that started with some egg and sperm bumping into each other is dead. But this guy right here is also the Jean-Luc Picard we watched from the Next Generation. The fact that the organic Picard died the moment this one was created means that they're the same person. If you want to take the other example, again, Doctor Who has one over this. The Almost People, the Living Flesh, it's a two-parter. The Almost People is definitely one of them, where, like, you have loads of people and they basically get cloned, and then there's two versions of them. Well, every single part of their timeline that's shared, yeah, that's the same person. They're both that person. And then when there's a split that occurs, sort of this bit is two different people. It's why the scene with Data and Picard in the first season does nothing for me. Because the way they're saying... I mean, it's confusing, but the way I think they're trying to say it is the Data in the simulation was the one from B4. It makes more sense Maddox found some molecule of Data's brain or whatever from the Nemesis battle and grew a new Data, but that Data does not remember sacrificing himself for Picard, right? If that's the B4 Data, Picard is doing nothing. Like, it's not the guy who sacrificed his life for him. That's not the Data he knew, at least from, like, the things that he's struggling with. I don't know, it's just such an obvious cut and dry thing to me that so many people struggle with, and I don't understand why. It's why I like that Doctor Who two-parter so much, because the Doctor is just... And I didn't get my opinions from that episode, but it's the only time I've seen someone react like I do, where it's like, well, no, is it not obvious, like, what has happened here? I've just realized the Lost Arena isn't black. It's in camouflage, grayscale camouflage, which I can't tell if it's hilarious or practical or both. Because, yeah, it's camouflaged against the black if you remove the cinematic lighting. But also, like, just black is also camouflaged against the black. I don't know. All I wonder is, when is Eaglemoss going to try and sell it to me? At first, I thought this guy right here was the famous Zephram Cochrane statue where, like, he's got his hand... Is he pointing? It's something like that. But no, it's clearly labeled Alton Soong, which is the Soong from the first season of Picard, if I recall correctly. It's always nice seeing Brent Spiner's voice. I mean, he's got such a range as an actor. Even if you could argue maybe the Soong family as Brent Spiner is a bit overused. I mean, I think it's comical enough, and it's Brent Spiner. I mean, I'll always welcome him back. Also, we've learned why Starfleet Academy was so dark and metal. It's because they're going to show this one more, and so they just reuse the assets. I'm also finally going to look up, because those damn solar panels, honestly, annoy me so much. Especially in this century, like, are you telling me San Francisco was not powered by some sort of fusion, or is it fission or antimatter reactor even? Yes, it is. The Golden Gate Bridge is a north-south facing bridge that they've laid solar panels on, but, like, facing south, north or south, actually, facing south, right? Oh, look at that. It's Starfleet Academy Bay. That's so weird. What's actually there? The U.S. Coast Guard? A marina? I've never seen this on a map before. That's fun. But anyway, why don't you face them east-west and have them move? God, I hate those solar panels. Why is it there? Like, I don't understand the solar panels on the Golden Gate Bridge. I don't understand it. Even if they're not driving, like a footpath or something, I don't get it. How much electricity are you really getting out of the Golden Gate Bridge? Oh, no, I've just seen. That's actually Adam Soong, if you read it. So that's going to be Brent Spiner's new character, because I don't recognize the Soong, and that's how you do foreshadowing. The youngest Soong, just shattering the theory that all the Soongs look like Brent Spiner because the first one was a geneticist. I mean, looking forward to seeing Brent Spiner again. He's always a pleasure. Oh, there's also a line the Borg Queen gave of, like, there's a friend you have in LA. And I can't remember which one city 10 Forward was in. Like, the Watcher and stuff. I'm like, that's gotta be Guinan, right? They're gonna do the thing where they go to 10 Forward in the past because it's the historical district and it's still there and Guinan's still there. I did realize she'd still be old, like Whoopi Goldberg. They'd have to de-age her. And given the kind of quality of Q's de-aging as short as it was, I don't think they quite have the budget for that. Maybe they could magic it away. Like, Guinan can de-age herself. If she can age herself, then maybe she can de-age herself. Which I forgot to mention, that was a weird line from the first episode. I didn't think they needed it. I think it could have been just they age really slowly, then really fastly. Aging when you wanted to felt a bit weird. But if they're going to have her in the past, also old, older than she was in the Next Generation, and even the 1800s, yeah, I'll accept it. Illyrians can age and de-age themselves. It really actually, that would explain why she could live amongst humans in the 1800s and not raise suspicion. And that also finally answers the, like, a bold man was very kind to me once, because people always ask, what's up between Guinan and Picard? And people will say, Time's Arrow. That's what it is. Bullshit. The problem with Time's Arrow being, like, them becoming friends is going to be hard for me to explain, because it's been a long time since I've seen The Next Generation. But basically, if you really look at the comments that Guinan makes, it doesn't really make sense. That, like, you saved his life, or it was kind to me. Their friendship is always seen as so deep is the main thing. And, like, you're telling me that they met once in the 1800s with that, and then she served upon the Enterprise D, and it's like the deepest connection Picard has ever had in his life. Really? I have family that I feel I am not as close to as Picard and Guinan describe their deep spiritual bond. Like, really? Annika's speech. I know this isn't President Annika, but I mean, Seven is not the public speaker to be a dictator. She could have at least tried a little bit. She's just reading from a script, basically. But I did like the inclusion and the pause on the resistance in the speech, just kind of the parallels of, like, oh, we're the Borg now. I think it's rather empty, given this is an alternate timeline. I guess you could argue 2024 is in our future, right? Depending on what the event is, it sort of, you could take it as a warning. It is like what we could become. I guess the original Mirror Universe was kind of like that. I don't know. I just thought it was like, I was like, oh, I see what you did there. They like it when you mix the words around. I am an American in the early 21st century. And, I can say for certainty that in the massive crowd of people at this assembly, when Picard started shooting the other people on the stage, that absolutely the majority of them in this totalitarian nightmare are currently carrying guns, and at the very least one of them in the crowd would have shot back. And that's it, we're caught up, really. Would I rather have watched Discovery? Go check out my Discovery view to find out. But I'll say this was definitely better than I expected it would be. Overall, I'm happy with the jump in quality. If this is the rest of the season, I think I'd enjoy it. They still have to nail the ending. They're technically unproven. Live-action Star Trek as a whole, but also Picard is definitely unproven. And their ability to land an ending. But I hope I can get that faith back in the coming episodes that hopefully are better in what they're trying to do. Yeah. Am I looking forward to episode 3? And it's not like Discovery where I keep wanting them to go. Like, I'll probably enjoy it, but not particularly. Oh, next week's review. I'm taking a train back to Spokane, that will get back Wednesday night. Probably too late to do one of these reviews, record and edit and upload. That's a problem because Discovery will be first. It's a season finale. It takes precedence. But I'll be on my parents' potato internet, which means it'll take like a full day to upload one of these. So there's a chance you won't get the first review till like Thursday night, and then the next Friday morning at best, maybe later. As always, check out my Twitter if you really want to know those like details for the scheduling. I hope I'll be awake enough to do a good review and upload it overnight, so it'll be available Thursday morning like they used to be. But I've also just remembered I have to get up for an 8 a.m. final, and so I'm probably not going to be super awake at like 1 when I get to Spokane, and then even later when I actually get to my parents. So yeah, just be aware there will be delays, especially with the Picard review. Discovery season openers and season finales just take precedence. What does that mean for the Picard finale and Strange New Worlds first? I don't know yet, but maybe we'll take it to another vote. But yeah, thanks for watching. Discovery review, hopefully Saturday at best, probably. But we'll see. It will happen though. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.